Ruth Stogner Sharp is a native of Taylor, Mississippi. Ruth holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Belhaven College. She was a teacher at Pearl Junior College and Raymer High School before she and her husband Richard arrived in Corinth in 1948. Once here, she began her long career at Corinth High School as an English and typing teacher. Ruth and Richard have one son, Gary, and a daughter-in-law, Jean.
Ruth Sharp and I have been good friends ever since we moved to Corinth, Mississippi to live in 1948, and we've been friends ever since. I feel that I know her as well as anybody in Corinth or anywhere else for that matter, because we've been good friends for a long time. We've worked together in so many projects, and I have seen her diligence, her sincere interest, and conscientiousness in every task she's ever undertaken.
Teamed with Tootsie Dalton at Corinth High School, Ruth left an indelible mark on this community. Although she officially retired from teaching in 1984, she continues teaching, counseling, and mentoring. Ruth Sharp has also been actively involved in the community as a volunteer in many different capacities. She is a life member of Junior Auxiliary, a service that began when it was the Junior Service League. She has also been active at First Presbyterian Church in Corinth.
One thing Ruth does right now on a regular basis that probably a lot of people do not know is that she volunteers every Friday to come into the church office, and she gives that whole day to helping in the office. One very personal way she's made a contribution to our church is since Richard's death, she made a memorial to her husband, Richard, by beginning our church library. That was a total remodeling of a room and a start of beginning to buy books to stock our church library.
She and I were co-chairman of the National Day of Prayer for 2 years, and she decided we did the second year better than we did the first, but she is definite she wants it done right. She's not going to do anything halfway.
Ruth Sharp is very much a behind-the-scenes person, quietly doing good for others.
When Mother got sick, Ruth and Richard just stepped in, and they stayed at the hospital with Mother.
Everyone who talks about Ruth Sharp uses the same words to describe her.
She was always well prepared, and she was always true to what she believed, and there wasn't any doubt where she stood on issues.
And she's a good thinker, and she has an opinion about most everything, and she's genuine and sincere in everything she does.
I must admit a little paranoia for myself in regard to Ruth Sharp, because I am her pastor, which means she hears me preach and teach a lot. So I'm thankful for Ruth that she hasn't been as hard on me as her preacher, as I've heard she used to be with many of her students.
She was encouraging, but she was fair. She was always so fair. She was firm. You knew to prepare. She taught you to prepare. She was going to give you the very best that she had and let you know that she wanted you to learn and you could learn.
She's a very caring person, a very honorable person. She's just, I think the epitome to me of the professional woman and kind-hearted person.
She wanted us to do well. She wanted us to succeed, and she was so excited and so happy when we did. And she never gave up. She made sure we had it.
A lot of her former students have stories to share about Ruth and the things that she taught them, such as profanity is the effort of a feeble mind to express itself forcefully, or never ever use refer and back in the same sentence. And under no circumstances should you be jumping like a green frog when called upon in class.
When I had Miss Sharp, I had her first period after lunch. At that time, we could go home for lunch. And you always wanted to know the answer if she called on you in class. And I could hardly eat lunch because I would think, what if she calls on me and I do not know the answer? I'll be so sick if she says, right now, give me the answer.
And you didn't go to her class if you didn't have your homework. You just might as well stay at home. because she was going to rake you over the coals. But, therefore you didn't have very much of that.
It has been 50 years since I sat in your classroom at Corinth High School, and you are still Miss Sharp. Never Ruth, but Miss Sharp.
When my son Randy was taking typing under her, he was not supposed to get on a motorcycle with anybody, and he got on a motorcycle, had a wreck, and broke his arm. When she went to school the next day, he told her that he and I had discussed, and and he could talk me into a lot of things. We decided he needed to drop typing because he couldn't type with a cast on his right arm, and he just needed to drop that course. And when he told her this, she said, "You and your mother decided you were supposed to drop typing. That's not her decision to make, and that's not yours. You will not drop typing. You will continue to take typing, and you will pass it." And he said, "Yes, ma'am."
She was teaching as she usually did, and she sat down in her chair after the class instruction was over. And the chair slipped and slid, and she fell behind her desk. Well, with the strong hand that she had as far as a disciplinarian was concerned, the students, no one laughed. And she got up from the back of the desk, and she rose from the floor, and she straightened her skirt, and she stood up, and she looked and said, "You may laugh, class." Her bark was worse than her bite.
It's obvious that Mrs. Sharp really cared about her students.
She truly loved the children.
Her goal was to see that everybody in her class reached their potential.
John was a good student. He loved her. And when he got to Ole Miss, if he was having trouble with a paper, he would call her from Oxford, and he would say, "What do you think about this, Miss Sharp?" And he played football when he was there, and she went to a lot of the games. And one day the team always walks through the grove, before the game, and she was standing there not far from me, and when he walked by, she said, you know who I am, John Darnell." He said, "I heard Miss Sharp."
Corinth would not be what it is today without her. I mean, thousands of lives. It's not just the people she taught, but it's the people that she taught, the lives that they touched.
But she expected you, she demanded that you learn, that you do what was required. And therefore you did. You knew you didn't have a choice. When I got to Northeast to take freshman English, and the professor, saw where I went to school, and of course with Ruth Sharp and Tootsie Dalton, you didn't lack any English knowledge.
Former students overwhelmingly think of Ruth Sharp as the teacher who had the greatest impact on them. One of Ruth's students, David Lentz, expressed it this way: "Teaching was not her job. A teacher is who she is." Ruth Sharp continues to influence students today, and her legacy continues to grow.
Missy had Miss Sharp in '82, and when I was asked to do this, I thought, I wonder how my children feel about Miss Sharp today. So I said to Missy, what do you think about Ruth Sharp? What would be your thoughts on Ruth Sharp today? She said, ageless, which is so true. Speak clearly and use good grammar. Our son was determined to take typing, and he had big hands, and we really didn't think he needed to take typing. And I said to my husband, I just don't know what John will do if he gets Miss Sharp for typing. I just don't know if they can gel or not. So I ran into her shortly after he was in her class, and I said, I almost came to talk to you about John because I was really concerned about him taking typing in your class because he liked to do just at that time what he had to do. She said, let me tell you, Jim, you leave John alone. I'll take care of John and he will learn to type. And he did.
Whether through a special bond with her prayer angel or as a surrogate grandmother, teacher, and mentor, Ruth Sharp continues to inspire and help others. So because of your lasting influence on your students, your volunteer work in your church and your community, we would like to say congratulations. For former students, Brother Jerry Fuqua put it this way: to Ruth Sharp, teaching was her mission, and she was on a mission to train her students to be the leaders of today. Look around. Mission accomplished.